Hello and welcome back to the Thrive in Life and Business podcast with me, your host, Tara Punter, and a very, very, very special guest who I'm very excited to talk to. I met the incredible Sarah at an event that we were both speaking at last September, October time. And when she shared her story on stage, I thought, oh my gosh, firstly, I want to get to know this woman. And secondly, I want her to come on the podcast. And here she is. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I know it's time's flown, hasn't it, since that day that we were together on that stage. But wow, yeah, it was really inspirational day. Really lovely to meet you, and I am absolutely honoured to be here with you today on your fabulous podcast. So thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. So before we dive into your whole story and all of the things and all of the chaos that comes with your life that I'm so excited to explore, would you mind just giving our listeners a little insight into you, who you are, and what you do?
Yeah, okay. So I'm Sarah McDermott, author of Chaos, The Art of Resilience. Other than that, I have a business called Luxury Travel Emporium. So we've got high-end holiday homes and hotels all around Yorkshire. I've been in property for 8 years now. Before that, I was a private investigator, so I've worn many hats over the over the years, and always been, yeah, surrounded by chaos.
I love that. How did you go from being a private investigator into property? Because that's not a regular career path. How did that come
No,
about?
it's not a natural transition, is it really? No. I was actually just sat on a surveillance job one day, outside some bloke's house with my film cameras set up and everything, and I had to wait there for 8 hours. And I was a bit bored, so I downloaded an audio book which was called Money. I didn't realise it was all about property development, but honestly, I was just hooked and I thought, this is what I want to do. I've always had a bit of a flair for interior design. I'd always been quite intrigued by property and the property market, but never really had a dabble in it, and thought maybe this is the time. So yeah, and within the space of a month, I'd listened to about bloody 10 audio books on property development, and then I just kind of grabbed Sean and said, right, Sean, we're going to do property now. This is what we're doing next. And that was it. We went, I wrote to the person who'd written the book, Rob Moore, and said, oh, Rob, I've been listening to your audio books. I'm a private investigator. I just wanted to say thank you for opening my eyes to this other world. And he thought that was hilarious. And he had a private investigator listening to his books. He put something about that on his podcast, and then he sent us some free tickets to go to one of his events, and that's it. We were in then. All in. We're both very, if we're in something, we're going to do it 100%. So we just stopped everything else that we were doing and dove straight into property, invested a lot of money that we didn't have, but learnt from the best in the business. And and then within the space of 6 years, by some kind of miracle, we've managed to build a portfolio of holiday homes and hotels worth £22 million. So that was, so we didn't just have a dabble in property. We went, wow, straight in for it. And here we are.
Yeah. There's a couple of key things that I really love about that piece of your story. I think number one is just suddenly going all in. I think so many people have an idea and then they dabble a bit and then they do too much research or ask too many people of their opinions and they just don't fully commit. And number two is that you moved pretty quickly on that, didn't you? But again, I think
Yeah.
that's the lines to going all in, trusting your gut, trusting your intuition, and just going for it. What was that like at that beginning phase of kind of thinking, oh shit, we're going for this?
Exciting. It was exciting. And I think you're right there. That really resonates with what you say about people put themselves off things all the time. There's analysis paralysis, which obviously stops us moving forward. But then people listen to the tribes. And, I have a little acronym for the tribe, which is too many relatives interfering blindly without experience. Because people just jump in, don't they? They just jump in and give you all their opinions and put the fear of God into you when they know nothing about it. They know nothing. Unless, if you want to take money advice from somebody or business advice from somebody, take the advice from somebody who's in the business or who's got the money. Don't take advice from somebody on a diet who's never done the diet. You just don't do that, do you? But
No.
people do. But no, for me, once I'm set on an idea, I'm in, and I can't be switched off. Obviously, I'll do my due diligence and I'll look at situations. I'll take somebody's advice, and I've always had mentors as well. I must say, I've always had mentors, but the mentors have always been in a place where I want to get to. So they're the people that we listened to, and we felt very strongly that this was where we were supposed to be, and it was going to be a success.
Yeah, I love that. So I think, I literally said to some clients yesterday, don't take advice from someone that isn't where you want to be. And it's so often the people that aren't where you want to be that are giving you all of the advice. But I think,
Yeah,
again, like you said, you're getting yourself in those spaces, having those conversations and getting that support from people that have built the property portfolio that you wanted. So
yeah.
when you started kind of going on that journey, what were the first couple of years like in terms of starting to build that portfolio?
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, when we first started, we didn't realise where we were going. When we first started, the first property we bought on that journey was a £10,000 buy-to-let property in Rotherham, and we spent, I think, we bought it with a Tesco loan. We borrowed, which my mum got. Me, Sean's brother Gerard lent us 12 grand to do the renovation because we had no money. We were starting from nothing, and we'd literally plunged every penny that we had into the property training, which was about 50 grand. So it was, we were skint by this stage. So we'd spent 22 grand on this first house, and then we got it revalued at 75, and we were like, oh, excellent. This works. Let's buy a HMO now because this is the other buzzword. So we did exactly the same with the HMO, pretty much rinse and repeat. And then we bought our first holiday home, Aysgarth Nook, and we had no idea the outcome that we were going to get from that property. So we bought it thinking, well, we've always loved the Yorkshire Dales. This is in one of the most beautiful little villages in the Yorkshire Dales. And for us to have that, if it makes any kind of profit whatsoever, but we get to stay there a few times a year with our friends and family, then it's a bonus. Let's just do that. So we bought it I think for 275. We'd spent 230,000. We'd spent 100 grand on the renovation, and we were like, God, please let us just get the valuation back in at 230,000. Sorry, 330,000. So it covers what it's cost us. If we can do that. The valuation came back at 500 grand, and we were like, what? And then the agents came round who were going to market it for us, and we were thinking, oh well, we rent cottages all the time in the Yorkshire. It's probably going to be £800 a week. She took one look at it and she went, wow, Sarah, we've got nothing else like this on our books. It's going to be £1,500 a week minimum. And we were like, wow, it blew our socks off. And then within a few days of it going live, they rang me back up, Wendy from Ingrid Fluke's Yorkshire Holiday Cottages. She rang me back up and she said, it's selling too quickly. We need to increase your prices. And suddenly it was averaging like £2,300 a week for this holiday cottage that we had no idea of its value. And it was then that we thought, wow, we've created something niche here. Also Sean, my husband is a very, he's a very fiercely loyal Yorkshireman, and he was like, I want to uplift Yorkshire. I want everyone to come to Yorkshire for their hollybobs, right? So we're going to make something magnificent in Yorkshire, and that was his only goal, was to get more people into Yorkshire. For me, I just wanted to create this beautiful space that was, because when you go on holiday, I mean, back in the 1980s, we were just glad to get a holiday, but now people are a lot pickier, aren't they? And they generally want to go somewhere that's at least as nice as their own home. So I was trying to create this beautiful space where people would come in, they'd get the wow factor, and they'd feel really special. And we did it. We created it, and that was it. And then we were just off. Then we were off like the clappers, buying them left, right, and centre. Until COVID came, really, and put a bit of a, well, we still carried on through that, but it did put a bit of a dampener on things, to be honest.
What did that season of your kind of business growth look like around COVID?
What, sorry?
What was your business season around COVID like?
Well, it was very difficult, to be honest. It was because we were a hospitality business and a development business at the same time. We were caught between a rock and a hard place because we had to shut our doors, obviously, to holiday guests. So we had no income coming in. But the construction industry was told to crack on and carry on. We only got 3 weeks of actual lockdown before we were sent back to work. And costs were going through the roof. We couldn't get the trades. People were going off with COVID, off sick with COVID constantly. And it was just, costs were just ridiculous, spiraling out of control. And we didn't have the guys on the ground to be able to do the renovations. So renovations that were going to take a couple of months ended up taking like nearly a year. you know, and it would just, we ended up bottlenecking at one point because before COVID as well, I'd also committed to do some other people's because I'd got, you know, like a bit cocky by then, Billy Big Balls. Here, I'll manage your, you know, I'll do the site management for your development as well. And I'd given people set fees. And obviously, those, you know, the costs went out of control. You know, we were having to pay for other site managers because suddenly I had 9 developments ongoing all at once. I think 4 of them were our own and 5 were for other people. And trying to manage that, there's only me and trying to put other people on those sites and having to pay other people to be on those sites. You know, meanwhile, getting it in the neck from the people who own those sites. This is taking longer. The costs are higher than what, you know, we expected. I'm like, they are. Like the price of wood has quadrupled. You know, people are selling bags of plaster for 50 quid. Of course, you know, I mean, we were lucky that we had a builder's merchant who we knew and we could still get plaster at a reasonable price, but everything else was astronomical and it would take him much longer and there was nothing I could do about it. And I was the person at the centre of all of this, having to find the extra money, having to deal with all the people off, having to, you know, find new tradesmen from here, there, and everywhere, having to battle with local residents in some areas as well. At Robin Hood's Bay, we had a development ongoing there, and the residents did not want us there. But we had to go there to finish the development. Meanwhile, we've got this property on a bridging loan and interest costs are racking up. And we had to down tools for 3 months on it. So we just couldn't. The residents hated us being there. And to be honest, at that time as well, I had too many projects for other people, and I thought I just want to get them done and get them off my back. So then, you know, so we kind of sacrificed our own development to get theirs done and get them off. So yeah, we had to borrow an extra 1.2 million just to get to the other side of COVID. And then, you know, we did have a bit of a COVID flourish where everybody booked the holidays because nobody could go abroad at the time. But after that, you know, it's bounce back loans coming out of our ears, you know, excess debts to pay, constantly trying to recoup that. And meanwhile, we were just thinking, oh, it'll be all right because when we get through to the other side, we'll just refinance everything because we'd borrowed all this extra money on bridging loans and things. Of course, when we got to the other side, that budget happened, the Liz Truss budget, the famous one that literally trebled our mortgage rates overnight. We were on variable mortgages with everything, and suddenly you couldn't even get a mortgage on a holiday let for a while, especially multiple unit ones. I think there were about 4 or 5 months where you couldn't even get a mortgage at all. They just weren't offering them. And then when they did come back to the market, they were at 10%, which were no better than the bridging loans we were already stuck on. So that was the start really of the main chaos. I mean, COVID was chaos, but it was this aftermath that was real chaos. You know, just the finance and the market's just been ridiculous. Finance costs going through the roof, not being able to get off of these expensive bridging loans we were already on, and the fact that the mortgages that we already had that we were managing and we were making a profit against suddenly trebled. You know, so that bit was not fun.
How did you manage and navigate all of that? Because that takes one like seriously resilient woman to keep digging deep, to keep doing those things, to keep going every single day when it must have felt like everything was just being thrown at you.
Oh,
How
it
did you
was, yeah.
how did you keep going?
Well, I mean, it was difficult at times. You know, there was on the on Robin Hood's Bay project, for instance. This was while we were still developing Robin Hood's Bay. At the very end of it, I had a bit of a I'm calling it a mini nervous breakdown, and I had to take myself out of the situation. I actually went straight to an Ayurveda centre and just checked myself in for a week, and I just did meditation, yoga, ate the right foods, had the treatments, opened my third eye, got some clarity. and did all that, but it took me a good 3 or 4 weeks at least until I was feeling normal again after that because I was just one day I just realized I couldn't think anymore, and I was shaking and I was crying constantly. And it was my friend Christine actually said, she said, Sarah, I think you're having a nervous breakdown. And I was like, I think I am. I think I actually am on the verge of that right now. So I just took myself out of the situation. And it's one of those lessons you learn. Mentally, I am a very resilient person, but at some point it catches up with you physically. And, you know, that's not been the only time that that's happened. You know, there's been a few pain points, let's call it. I can take a lot, but nobody is invincible. Do you know what I mean? It's you know, it does get to you. But yeah, the aftermath, you just keep putting one foot in front of the other. You just get through it. You know, we had some great investors at the time who stepped in to help us, you know, a few times, but you know, it's been it's definitely been a challenge. And then, you know, what happened after that kind of went from bad to worse, really.
And you can't give us those teasers and not tell us the story. Come on, tell the story.
So, yeah, so basically that was so 2023 was a pain in the ass, really. So 2023, the interest rates were still high at the beginning of the year, and we thought, right, we're going to have to make more money. We're going to have to make more money. This is the only way we can do this, is to make more money. So it was like, right, okay. So we thought we need to get some fabulous marketing going on here. So we went off to this very well-known marketing company that provide CMOs, and they brought us this guy in from Hilton Hotels, and he was going to be all fandangled and fancy. And his mission was to make Maison Parfaite famous. That was the business name at the time, make Maison Parfaite famous. That's what he was going to do. He said our website was terrible. We needed a new one, and he was going to organise and sort all of that out. And we needed a new channel manager and all these things. Anyway, the long and the short of it is we spent £70,000 on this super duper new website and all of the stuff to go with it. And it came to it, and it didn't work. It wasn't compatible with our business model. So then we had about three months arguing the toss with the website company and him. He eventually washed his hands of it, kind of stepped away from the business, and we were left with no website for 5 months. So we lost about 450 grand in bookings for not having a website, because that was what we were getting in direct bookings, you know, at the time. We had no website at all, and then, you know, so that was a sort of bad thing in 2023. And then we'd in that time we'd also got ourselves an emporium in Leeds city centre, so like a retail space. So we were going to, you know, start managing other people's properties, and it was all very exciting. And we've got a new emporium manager in who turned out to be a gambling fraudster, and basically set up 6 sum up payment card terminals in our business, all paying out to his personal bank accounts. And he contacted all the customers that had booked on booking.com, Airbnb, any other OTAs, and he basically offered them a discount to book direct instead, got them to cancel the bookings with said online travel agency, come direct, and he was sending the payment links out, and the money was going straight to him. So this was in very early 24 when we noticed the first chunk of money went missing in December 2023, a big chunk. I mean, we were £53,000 down on the December income that we expected. And then January, February are our worst 2 months of the year, and we barely got a penny in, and we couldn't see where the money was going because, you know, nobody else had access to the bank accounts other than me, so there was no lifting of money coming out or anything. But it was just not coming through. It was showing that people had paid, people on booking.com had paid. We had Mark, who worked for us before, he came back in just to do an audit, just to find this missing money, couldn't find it anywhere. And eventually, by me, a different event I happened to have sight of this person's bank statement and noticed that in December £53,000 went into his bank. And I rang the police straight away, and eventually we got to the bottom of it and found out what had happened, and that it had all been done through SumUp. So bonkers, isn't it? I mean, there was no due diligence from SumUp there whatsoever, because they'd allowed someone who's a non-director of the business to set up the card terminal machines, even though he wasn't a director, and for it to be paying out to somebody's personal bank accounts that's not connected to the business. So it's just, yeah, unbelievable. Really, that can happen, but it did. And the consequence of that is that we bounced our mortgage payments in January, February and March of 2024. And because of that, our credit scores went through the roof, through the floor, not through the roof. And we had 2 developments ongoing at the time, the Burgoyne Hotel, where I am now. As you can see, it's still here, so we're all good with that one. Fabulous place in the Yorkshire Dales. And the Secret Garden House in Leyburn, both ongoing developments. Here at this hotel, we had already spent 350,000 into the renovation monies, and we were due to get the drawdown to cover that in 2 days, and it fell through. It got pulled on us because of our credit scores being affected because of the fraud. And suddenly I had £350,000 worth of bills to pay and no money to pay it at all. And it was exactly the same that happened on the Secret Garden house. The previous owner of this hotel had actually, about a week before we were buying the hotel, the valuation came in lower than expected. So we were going to have to pull out. And he said, "Oh, I'll lend you the £200,000 so you can buy it off me still." So he did. And we were supposed to be paying him that £200,000 back from that. And because we didn't have it, he issued a bankruptcy petition against me and Sean, tried to make us bankrupt. We had to pay an extra £40,000 in legal fees just to get out of that. He was ruthless, you know. It was just, it was bonkers. Yeah, it was absolutely bonkers. You know, we had it was horrible. It was horrible at the time. You know, being the one who's accountable. You know, we've got tradespeople who live hand to mouth who we couldn't. They've worked for a month and there's no pay for them. It's just not there.
Yeah.
You know, threat of receivership on both of the business, threat of receivership on all of the, you know, all of the properties, all of the businesses. It was just a nightmare at the time. And you know, some of them haven't survived. There are some that have gone into receivership. There are, you know, one property. Again, the finance companies. You'd really, do you know what? I don't regret any of this, and I don't wish that none of it has happened because it's all been so incredibly valuable. Even though, you know, we haven't got the £22 million portfolio anymore that we had, it's a lot less than that now. We still, you know, we still got some of it, and that's great, but not like what it was because it's been taken, it's disappeared, it's been, you know, it's a consequence of the fraud. It's gone. It's fine. What's been really enlightening is seeing how people react and how people behave around that. You know, some finance companies have stepped up and been really gracious and allowed us time to get out of it, to sell a property, to, you know, to give, to have time to pay them back, and that's been wonderful. And you know, there's a lot of others who haven't. Well, not a lot. I'd say probably two or three that have been really, really nasty in the process, and you know, people who've, you know, doubled our interest rate because we're already in debt, even though it was, you know, related to a crime. There's no consideration there of trying to help your client come through it, you know. There's one company in particular that we'd been working for years with before this happened, and we've recommended them to loads of people, but as soon as we got into difficulty, absolutely ruthless. You know, they forced us. We'd had arrears on one property for 36,000, and we'd been paying it back £5,000 a week, and we'd paid it off. And as soon as we paid it off, they issued us with a demand to repay the debt in full within 40 hours. And they forced us to fire sale the property overnight. It was worth 1.6 million, and we had to sell it for £1,050,000, which was less than the mortgage was due on it. You know, and that just happened, you know, and it was up for sale, you know, it had interest in it. You know, we had other people that would have bought it for maybe not the full 1.6, but 1.4, 1.35, but it just left us in even more debt because they did that. And you know, it was almost like spiteful. It's like they try to drive you into these things. There was another property with them that, you know, we had I had multiple solutions that I came up with to get out of the deal with them, to refinance it elsewhere, and they just put blockers in every step of the way, almost like pushing it into further debt. So they get what they want. They get what they want, and they're ruthless, some of them. But then again, others are not. And do you know what this has given me now? So I've been mentoring people in property for quite a while. And not, I don't do it so much. I've still got a few property mentees. Mostly I work with people now who are in all sorts of business on resilience. But the property ones, this is so valuable now for me to be able to go to them with this information, you know, because everyone's nice when it's going right. Everyone's great when it's going right, but it's who's going to have your back when it all goes to cock.
Yeah.
That's what you need to know as a new person who's coming into property or going into any business now. This is the important stuff. And, you know, the behaviours of some have been wildly different to the behaviours of others.
I love how much you've turned that pain into purpose. And I always, always, always think like all of the shit I've been through in my nearly 11 years in business. I mean, it's nothing on, I'm sure, like all the shit you've been through, but there has been so many massive highs and massive lows and legal things and finance things. And every single time I navigate something or have to go through something, I think, right, now I'm better equipped to be able to help somebody if they find themselves in that situation, whether it's divorce, personal things, narcissist, business things, money things. And I think it's so powerful when we can then almost learn from those situations to then use that for good. So I love that you've then been able to do that.
Absolutely. Well, do you know what? I thought I've got to do this. And that's why I wrote the book. You know, when this happened, when this fraud all kicked off, and it was about 3 or 4 months after that, and I ended up in hospital again with stress related, not in an Ayurveda centre this time, in proper hospital. Sat there in a waiting room thinking I'm about to get a terminal diagnosis here because I was being tested for pancreatic cancer.
Mm.
And I thought, shit, if I've done this to myself now, for what have I done this for? I've worked myself to the bone. I've been working like absolute buggery over the last few years. I've neglected my health. I've neglected my family, striving and driving and trying to prove myself as a woman in a male dominated industry. People pleasing, trying to, I don't know, step up to people I didn't even know existed before I got into this property world. And now I'm on the brink of losing everything, brink of losing the business, brink of potentially losing my life because of this. And I thought, this is so wrong. And I sat there and I think I felt regret for the first time in my life. And I was regretting the fact that I haven't spent enough time with my kids. And I am actually, at that time, I wasn't myself. I wasn't the joyful person that I usually am. And I hadn't written a book. And I've always been a writer at heart. When I was, a kid at school, I used to write the school Christmas plays. I've always written poetry. I've just always loved writing. And it hadn't happened. And I just literally took a cross out of my bag because Sean had given me this little wooden cross, and I just sat there and I said a prayer to God and begged for another chance at life. And I said, if I can please have this other chance, God, I promise to now live from joy, from purpose, from fulfillment. I'll sod all this off and I'll turn it around, and I'm going to write the freaking book. I'm going to write a book from within the eye of the storm, and I'm going to go into every day, no matter what's going on, with joy anyway, with kindness anyway, with love anyway. And I'm going to see how that works, what comes out of that. And I'm going to pull out all these lessons and I'm going to put it into this book, and it's going to help people. And
Love
that's exactly what it's there for. It's there to help people.
it. And since making that declaration to God slash the universe, whatever you want
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
make it,
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
what's life been like since? Because I imagine you can make that declaration, be like, right, that's it, no more stress. And with the best will in the world, you can set that intention. What's it been like since? And how do you then manage yourself, your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions day to day?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's still been chaos ever since that. But I honestly can say now, right? So we've lost a few properties, um, you know, um, things aren't as rosy as what they should be or what they would have been. Financially, it's still a struggle at the moment. We're still getting through things, we're still dealing with a lot of things, and I am still having to have those awkward conversations on a daily basis. I'm still working through, paying back investors, paying back some finance companies, getting all that dealt with and done. But I am happier than I have been in years because I'm living my purpose now. This is what I was meant to do. I just know that, all of this stuff that we've been through, all the massive up and then the fall back down again, it was meant to be. It's my ups and downs, and it's here for a reason. And I thoroughly believe I'm here to help people to deliver this message. And I think it's just what the world needs right now. So yeah, it's still learning, still, before just well, actually on Christmas Day I had an autonomic nervous system crash, again a physical effect from just dealing with so much stuff. I was working 16 hours a day. I was spending 6.5 hours a day just on the phone, dealing with all the finances, the property sales, all this stuff, and it just takes its toll on you. I'd ordered a sauna blanket to chill myself out a bit and didn't realise I was actually depleting my electrolytes, and stress also depletes your electrolytes. So I made it worse by getting in the sauna blanket.
No way. What we live, we learn.
I know. So, and that's taken me a while to get back to normal after that, because again, it affects your cognitive function, memory, and all that kind of stuff. So, these are all lessons. But now, I do a lot to make sure that my well-being is top. I mean, I've lost lost 3 stone in the last year now, so I'm feeling physically a lot better. I've been looking after myself. I'm getting out for walks more. I am also, well, I meditate twice daily anyway. I do a chanting meditation every morning, a chanting meditation every evening. That just resets my physiology. During those meditations, the morning one, it's very much about manifestation. I picture what's going to happen in the world today, whatever I'm going to be doing, whether I'm speaking to an angry finance company or whether I'm going to the dentist, whatever it is, I project joy and love to that person that I'm going to go see. So kind of setting it up for the day ahead already. I think it's just very much about attitude. You know what? I've had conversations with people, it might be, there was one guy, I think, from Barclaycard Business, and he started off very angry on the phone at the moment, you're not paid your bill, da, 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 da. This was a while ago now. By the end of the conversation, he's buying my book, and he's like, I've never spoken to somebody so inspirational as you. So it, it depends how you decide to go into the conversation with people. You've just got to keep it open. And don't get me wrong, it's difficult, and I'm not perfect. And there's been times when I've failed at this as well. When I've had so many people and so many things to deal with that it slipped my mind. I have forgotten about somebody for a month, or I've forgotten about this. I haven't done that. But we're human and we're learning, and things are getting better and better and better. And when this first happened, Sean and I had a conversation and said, look, as long as everybody else gets their money back out, as long as the investors can get their money back out, etc., we can start again. Even if we end up with just the knickers on our asses, we will start it again. We'll be absolutely fine. We'll do something different, whatever. As long as we walk away with our sanity and our dignity, we're all good. And that's, we're still very much of that mindset. I think when you go through something that causes a loss, you realise actually how unimportant that thing is that we were going to lose in the first place. And I think that's something I just got because I've been in India for a month as well. Earlier this year, I went to do a tuk-tuk rally across India with the Sisterhood group to raise money for women and children's education in India, which was amazing. But I got stuck there for a while and, made a lot of connections. But the thing that I got from India was the people have got nothing materially. Most of the people have got nothing, but they've got everything at the same time because they don't want the things. They don't even know about the things that we all deem to be essential in our lives. I remember watching this woman as I was driving my tuk-tuk, and she was sat there in a paddy field with her little son, and they were just, sat there having a conversation and doing their work. And I thought, that is their life. There's no more complications. There's no expectations beyond that. They've got this beautiful connection together. She gets to spend every day with her son. He probably doesn't go to school, but he gets to stay every day with his mum. He knows what his life is, and there's no pressure. So they've got everything because they've got peace of mind, and they're not living up all these expectations that we live up to over here. So since coming back here, I've honestly been like the last week since I've been back, I've been like getting really annoyed with people and their disgruntlements and whinging about little things that don't really matter. And I think that's the thing you get when you go through something like this. You just think none of that was even important in the first place. That is not what's important. If you be happy and joyful from the inside without needing a flash car or a big fancy house or a load of things to prove to the world that you have got worth, if you can find that worth inside you anyway, then you're onto a winner. And that is real success. And I think that is what I've really learned about myself now. I think when I look back, when I'm thinking, well, I was building all these holiday homes, what was I trying to do? I was trying to impress. I was trying to be liked. I was trying to be loved. It was inner child Sarah, still probably playing up to daddy and trying to impress. But essentially, that's not who I am. Now I've realised that my worth has got absolutely nothing to do with any of that. If everything gets lost, if every property disappears from our portfolio, and I have literally got my knickers on my ass and that's it, my worth is still in there because I've still got all these great lessons and these learnings to pass on to people. And that is, for me, that's what it is now.
I love that. And I love that almost like loops back to that attitude piece. Because I think so many people have got a very skewed attitude around things that maybe have happened to them, or if they're in the victim mindset, or because there's things going on outside of them that they have no control over. And then they let that impact their mood, their mindset, their attitude, and their energy. And then they're just going through the world complaining about everything. I'm like, well, that's not going to make a change. That's not going to
No,
change.
I know. Exactly, yeah. People love being a victim, don't they? They love to blame everything on the world and the people around them. It's just, it's ridiculous. But until you take accountability, you will never have control over your own life. I've taken, I could have been a victim if I wanted to be. I'm definitely not a victim, you know. But I took accountability and said to everyone, look, I apologize. I employed that fraudster. You know, it's my business. I'm taking accountability and I'm going to sort it out. I could have just said, "Oh, sod it, let's go bankrupt and start again and not deal with any of this stress," which would have been the easier option, to be honest. But you know, don't do that. Take accountability, sort it out, learn from it, and you get such an amazing sense of self-awareness and empowerment when you take it on the chin and just go with it.
Yeah, I love that. And we wouldn't be having this conversation, and I wouldn't have met you at Magnetic Millions if you just thought, fuck it, I'm giving up.
Yeah. I know. I'm not a giver upper, especially when other people are involved. You've got, and I have heard about this, quite a lot in the property industry as well. A lot of people have been affected really badly because of the markets and because of COVID, and there are a lot of property businesses that have gone down. And unfortunately, there are some who've just like buggered off to another country and just left everybody in the lurch and not, just left their investors hanging and just buggered off. That's been an option for those people, but that would never be an option for me because it's not about the money, it's about doing the right thing.
I love that. So, what can we expect in your brand new book that is out now? And I'm already diving in and I love it. Like, what can we expect
Hey,
in that book?
lots of lessons. Chaos. So here it is, chaos, the art of resilience. So yeah, it's coming out on the 20th. So basically, it's a kind of mix. It's part sort of raw memoir telling our story and how this has all happened. But the main point of the book is it is a guidebook to help you to make the best out of your life. So it's part kick up the arse. It's told very much in my voice in bold Yorkshire. There's no there's no there's no sort of mincing words in there. So it's very straight to the point. But the whole point is so chaos is the catalyst for transformation. Chaos, its actual meaning, it's the primordial state from which the universe itself was born. And chaos comes in and she tears you apart, and all of your bits spill out all over the floor. And it's when that happens that you get to look at yourself in fine detail and you decide what bits go in, and we get to rebuild. So chaos is, it's also a model. So it starts off with C because all chaos starts in collapse. We then go through honesty, where we admit our own parts in the collapse and what's happened, and we take accountability. Then we go into the next phase, which is the awakening, and that's when we start to see everything really clearly. We start to see where we should be going, and we learn the sort of tricks of the trade and how to, hold yourself steady and how to really get what you want out of life. Then we go into O, which is orchestrate. So when we go into orchestrate, there's actually a full life design plan in that section as well. By the way, there's also a lot of resources that are attached to this book, so you can go onto the website and you can download all these extra bits that you can be working on as you go through it as well. And then that takes you into success at the end. So it's a 5-step process to take you from collapse right through to success. But success is joy and fulfillment, which hopefully opens up the flow of monetary wealth as well. But the end goal is not a set amount of money in your bank account. It's for you to feel fantastic no matter what is going on in your life. So that's the whole point of it, really. I just wanted to create something from my pain that would really hold people and help them come through it. So yeah, my daughter Genevieve, who's your kids are always your biggest critics, aren't they? And I always think that my kids always roll their eyes at me and think I must be a right idiot. But anyway, Genevieve has read the book from start to finish. She's 22 years old, and she just wrote me a review the other day, and she put it's like she said it's like the power of now. It's like Eckhart Tolle. She said I've never read anything that's made me feel so present, other than the power of now, but with rude analogies. And I was like, so. That's Genevieve's version.
That's a review to make everyone listening buy the book. I don't know what is.
Yeah.
I love
So it's
that.
the power of now with rude analogies thrown in.
Perfect. What a summary. And I think it's such an important concept. important book. It's got such an important message because we can't control everything that happens to us, around us. We can't control all of those things, but we can always control how we respond and how we react. So
Absolutely, yeah. It's resilience, it's ultra resilience. We all need ultra resilience. You know, if we've got that kind of armor on us, we can deal with anything. And this book tells people exactly how to get that, you know. And it's not another thing Genevieve said actually, it's not a self-help book in typical form, but it's the best book to help people help themselves. So, you know, that's it. It's yeah, it's a capability booster as well as an ultra resilience booster. So yeah, essential for anyone and everybody really in life. If you're going
anyone,
to be a human on this planet, you need it.
yeah, I love that. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your very real, very vulnerable story. Honestly, every time I hear you speak, I'm just encapsulated by you. I think
Oh, thank
just
you.
listen, and I'm just like, oh my God, and then what happened? Thank you so much for sharing your story with our incredible listeners and YouTube viewers. I will pop all the links in the show notes below. Is there anything
Brilliant.
else that you would love to leave our listeners with today?
Ooh, 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 ooh. Yeah, I think just oh, here's a little thing I'd like to tell you all. This is the biggest cause of suffering in our lives is putting too much importance on that which is really not important. We constantly fear loss or not being attached to something anymore. And that is, you know, that is what causes suffering. Whenever we put an importance on these things that don't matter, we're always afraid of losing them. Just detach yourself, lose the importance. The only important thing is you, your family, your health, people. That's what's important. The rest of it, just think balls to it. It doesn't matter, and you will be much happier.
I love that. What a quote to end. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's been an absolute honor. Thank you for all the work you do, turning your pain into purpose, spreading the chaos message, and just being the fabulous, resilient woman that you are. Thank you so much.